Welcome back for the link. We are today going to part 2. Last week we spoke about the importance of goals as we started the mini-series that we're in called Ready, Set, Goal. And so last week we really spoke about the importance of goals themselves. We said that plans without a goal is like trying to run a race without a finish line. And I gave you guys 5 reasons why goals were important, okay? We said number 1, goal setting is a spiritual responsibility that we have. Number 2, goals are a statement of faith. We say, I believe this is what God would want for me to do by this time. Number 3, we said goals help us to focus so that we're not all over the place. We know what we're doing. We know where we're going. We have something to aim for. Number 4, goals keep me moving. When I feel like not getting up, the fact that I have a goal that I don't want to lose my job, that keeps me getting up and moving out of bed. And number 5 is goals build my character. Goals build my character. Sometimes we don't want to move, but we do move. We keep on going, and that shows our character. So today we're going to be talking about, not about the goal part, but about the plan part. Okay, the plan part. Oftentimes we spend a lot of time talking about goals, yes? New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, we set goals. If you work in a corporation, usually in the month of December, they'll set goals. If you work in academia and education, usually in the summertime, they'll set goals. So we spend a lot of time talking about goals, but the problem, the reason why I think a lot of goals are not executed and reached is because there's no plan that's put in place to help a person reach their goals. Several years ago, a friend reached out to me and requested a meeting. He said, I need to meet with you. We've got kind of a problem on my hand. I said, what's the problem? He said, I got to talk to you about it in person. So we met up, and he was like really frustrated about something. We sat down, and he said, listen, I have set a goal every year for the last 15 years that I'm going to get through the Bible by the end of the year. And every year, I get about halfway through Genesis, and I stop. Okay? And he's like, I just don't know what to do. Now, his goal was good. Actually, the way he had laid out his goal was good. The problem was he didn't have a plan in place that would help him to execute that goal that was very important to him and something that he was reaching for and aiming for a number of times. To realize our goals, we need good goal setting. Okay? We need good goal setting. We're going to be talking quite a bit about goal setting today, a little bit more, but we're going to spend the majority of time talking about the second one, which is great planning. Great planning. As far as goal setting go, this last year, last March or April, I believe it was, we had set out a goal for the church, and I thought it was a very good goal. We had laid out, we want to raise this amount of money for our Putting Down Roots campaign, for the building that we wanted to buy, for our church to be able to grow into and set down roots. And we had set for ourselves 30 days to raise that amount of money. We were trying to reach $850,000, and that was the goal that we laid out. Now, oftentimes people say, that was a good goal, and the whole focus is, we're just going to put a goal together and hope that we reach that. Now, we've got a little bit of a problem, because over the last 8 months, or 6 months since we finished the campaign, I probably been contacted, along with another person here, has been contacted, I would say at least a dozen times, saying, we saw you guys did this fundraising campaign and raised X number of dollars. We want you to come help our church do that. I said, I can tell you the goal that we set, I can tell you the plan, but you've got to execute it. The issue is not the goal. The goal is the easy part. Any Joe Schmo can say, I want to raise $850,000 in 30 days. That's not the problem, okay? The issue, the bigger part, is putting a plan in place that will help me reach the goal that I want to reach. So that's what we're going to be talking about quite a bit today. In the business world, there's a tool called a gap analysis. I don't know if any of you are, I'm sure if you work in the corporate world, you are familiar with the gap analysis. And what a gap analysis it basically entails is 4 stages or 4 steps. And this is really a big part of what we're going to be talking about today. This is the main thing that we'll be talking about today. All right? So in a gap analysis, what you do is you start off by looking at your current state. You have to look where you are and where you've been, okay? You look at the current state, where am I today? The second part of that gap analysis is looking forward and saying, this is my desired state. This is where I'm going. This is where I want to be. This is where I ultimately see myself or hope to reach. Most people stop there. Most people, they look and say, this is where I am, this is where I want to be, okay? They look and say, I weigh a couple hundred pounds, I want to weigh 150 pounds, and that's it. And they stop at that point. They say, right now I'm not reading the Bible at all, and I want to read 5 chapters a day, and they stop there. The third part, which is as important, and you would think that it just kind of, it goes without saying, but you're saying, how far do I need to go? This is the gap, okay? And the gap, articulating the gap is important because it forces us to face what it is that we're actually trying to accomplish, okay? We oftentimes will say, this is my desired outcome. This is what I ultimately want to, where I want to be at. But the gap is necessary because without it, we can't determine if it's an achievable thing or not. Okay? Setting out this gap and looking at it, spending time thinking about it, is an important part of the process. And then the fourth part, which is what we'll spend the majority of time talking about today, is the action plan. How do I get there? Okay? So this is where I'm at, this is where I want to be, this is the gap in between, this is the delta, so to speak, and this is the plan that I'm going to take to get to where I want to go. Now, all of this ultimately, I would tell you, needs to be seasoned with prayer. Needs to be the whole process from the get needs to be seasoned with prayer. Okay? I'm not here to just give you some business tools that are going to help you, although I do believe these will help you. This is stuff that I used when I was in the corporate world, but this is stuff that I believe will benefit each of us, not only in our professional lives, our marital lives, our physical health, but also ultimately some of the spiritual goals that we've set. Okay? And as we mentioned last week, I said to you guys very clearly, we don't like compartmentalizing the sacred from the secular. Our whole life is to be sacred. Our whole life is to be spiritual. Okay? Your jobs are spiritual. Your marriage is spiritual. Your parenting, if you're a parent, is spiritual. Okay? Your money, God has quite a bit to say about your money. That's a spiritual matter. And our own personal relationship, how we encounter Him and spend time with Him is ultimately, of course, spiritual. In the book of Nehemiah, Nehemiah is faced with a bit of a predicament. And as he's faced with this predicament, something that needed to get done, before he did anything else, we are told that he prayed and he fasted. Just to give you some idea, in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 1, it says 9 times that Nehemiah prayed. Before he did anything else, he spent an insane amount of time, copious amount of time in prayer. In chapter 2, before he spoke to the king to take permission to do what he wanted to do, he also prayed. And in chapter 4, when he was being attacked, when the obstacles came, he once again prayed. And all throughout the book, you find Nehemiah as this man of prayer. And ultimately, I believe that that is the key to the success that Nehemiah found in reaching the goals and the dreams that God had put before him. So let's jump right into the gap analysis. Stage 1. Stage 1 is, where am I? This requires us to look back and to examine our current situation and perhaps how we got to our current situation. This is about becoming self-aware. This is about us looking and spending time saying, how did I get to the place that I'm at, and what is the true current state that I'm in right now? Several months ago, I did this when it came to my physical health. I got on the scale one day, I looked down, and my eyes bugged out. I couldn't believe it. I jumped off the scale, got back on, and it was the same. And I started taking off layers of clothes, and I got there, and I'm like, my socks, I'm like, the scale is not going down very much. And I was in shock. So I called up my doctor, and I said, listen, I am really worried I'm going to die. Like, I was feeling a lot of pain, my weight was going up, my belly was coming out, my back was hurting, my head was cloudy, everything. I was like, I need to see you. I need you to check me out, make sure I'm okay. And when I met with him, he said, when's the last time you did a physical? I was, excuse me? He said, when's the last time you did a physical? Just blood work even. I was like, it's probably been about 9-10 years. He's like, months or years? I said, 9-10 years. He said, you need to do a full analysis of your current condition. Oftentimes we look at just one layer, right? Step on the scale, look down, we see a number, we don't like the number. But there's a lot more that goes into looking at my current situation, okay? Which requires quite a bit of effort. It's about going and doing some research, and it's about asking questions, about asking others around you that may know you. It's about asking a professional perhaps and saying, what can you help me to understand my current situation on this, okay? If you have financial issues, don't come to me and ask me for financial advice. I'm a spiritual leader, okay? I can help you analyze and figure out what's going on in your soul, what you're thinking about, some of those things. But if you wanted financial advice, you'd probably go to a financial advisor, right? I mean, if you were looking to sit with a professional, you would go to that sort of a person, right? So when we look where we are at and where we've been, this is going to require some time and effort. And this is uncomfortable oftentimes. In the book of Nehemiah, we are told in chapter 1, verse 3, it says, Hanani and some of the brethren from Judah came to Nehemiah and they said the following. They said, the wall of Jerusalem is also broken down and its gates are burned with fire. This is the current situation. Before Nehemiah could do anything, he needed to know the current situation of Jerusalem. The walls were in ruin. The city was a mess. The temple had been destroyed. And before anything else could happen, the walls needed to be erected. Okay? So he became aware of this situation. And once he became aware of that, he didn't jump up immediately and take action. First thing he does is he prayed. And then he prayed some more. And then he prayed some more. And then when he prayed some more, he prayed a little bit more. He spent quite a bit of time sitting and reflecting and thinking about this information that he had come to realize. Thomas Rainer once said the following. He said, trying to create a strategy. Well, oftentimes we just look at a situation very superficially, we want to take action. Thomas Rainer said, trying to create a strategy can be a futile exercise in blind leadership without first assessing where you are now, where I am now, okay? So if you are the leader of an organization, for instance, and you're trying to figure out what you are going to do, where the organization is going to go, it's first important thing is assess where you are now. And quite honestly, this is the same thing that we would do in any area of our life that we want to grow or improve on. Any area we want to grow and improve on. But sometimes we don't want to look back, right? Sometimes when we look back, it's uncomfortable. Sometimes when we look back, we don't like what we see. Because sometimes when we look back, what it forces us to do is take action. And to do something we don't want to do. We all know the people that I'm about to describe, and these are some of the worst people in the world, okay? Some people, when they go to the grocery store, Costco, let's take Costco, okay? Go to Costco. They'll fill up, they'll be walking through, and they will fill up 2 cart full of food and all kinds of stuff, all right? And then they get out to the car, and they unload, reach back, unload, reach back, unload, and then what do? They leave the carts. They leave the cart. They won't even, they don't turn around. They don't want to make eye contact with the carts, because if they do, they got to move them, right? And if they make eye contact with someone else who's there, they got to move them. They just walked 2.5 miles inside of Costco, but they're too tired. They say, I just can't walk that extra 50 feet, take the grocery store cart, I just can't do it. So what do? They just leave it sitting there. And you're the poor sucker that pulls up and has a cart sitting right in a parking spot. It's an annoying thing. Yes? Am I the only one that gets annoyed by this? Okay. When we don't look back, it doesn't only show a lack of integrity on our part, but it also does impact others around us. Okay? If we want to make a change, if we want to do that which is right, what we would start off by doing is looking back and looking at current situation. It's about becoming aware of self. This is about self-examination. This is about knowing myself. This is about, like, for instance, if I am going to examine and know what I'm doing, I'm going to sit down and say, okay, where am I at currently as far as my reading of the Bible? Where am I at? Okay? I gave you guys 10 goals for the church that we're aiming for in 2018. Number 2 was read the Bible for at least 10 minutes and pray the daily office each day. Before I can say I'm going to read 10 minutes, I need to look and say, where am I at today? Some of you might say, Abuna, I'm already reading 15, 20 minutes. You want me to scale back? So first is examine where you're at and say, you know what, I'm reading 20 minutes. I don't think I should decrease. You know what, I'm going to increase. Some might say, I've never read the Bible a day in my life outside of church on Sundays. It's first assessing where I'm at. Number 8, be faithful stewards in tithing to the church. I have to first assess my situation. Some folks I know have never tithed their entire lives. It wasn't a practice or anything that they were raised doing. They were not raised with the biblical principle that we give at least 10% to the church, to God. Okay? So, but you have to first be aware of that. You have to be aware of that. And once you become aware of that, we'll talk about what to do with that in just a little bit. Number 3 is actually number 1 on the goals, being at church. Being at church at the offering. Okay? Be aware of your situation. Where are you at? Where are you at? Right now, maybe you look and you say, I don't get to church till 10:45. I don't get to church except for like after the gospel. Or I don't get to church till after communion on most Sundays. So first thing is we have to look and say, where am I currently today? Okay? Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but if that discomfort is good, because without discomfort, we're not prone to make change, right? If I don't get uncomfortable, if I didn't get uncomfortable when I looked down and had to like suck my belly in to look and be able to see the scale, then I wouldn't have probably said, I need to make a change. I wouldn't have done it, okay? If years ago I didn't sit down and look and say, man, I'm wasting a lot of time. I'm wasting a lot of time watching sports. If I didn't sit down and calculate how many hours a week of sports I was watching, I wouldn't have made a change. Okay? I wouldn't have. Because sometimes what happens, guys, is we go through life and life just happens. We don't realize what's going on. And so step 1 is such an important one. Don't skip it. Don't think it's just like yeah, I got it. I know what's going on. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we haven't spent enough time to really think about where I'm at today. So step 1 we said is what is my current state? Where have I been? Where am I at today? Number 2 in the gap analysis is where am I going? These are my goals. These are my goals. This is where I want to get to. This is my desired outcome. This is the finish line as we described it last week. Last week we said plans without a goal is a race without a finish line. Okay? It's a race without a finish line. I was talking to a friend of mine about a year ago, and I said, tell me about we were just trying to encourage one another in our Bible reading. And he said, I said, how's your Bible reading going? He's like, it kind of happens. I was like, what does that kind of happen? Like, what does that mean it just kind of happens? I'm like, no, like, what are you reading today? He's like, just whatever I open up. I'm like, okay, well, where did you read from today? He's like, I haven't read in about 3 months. I'm like, okay, now we're getting somewhere, all right? I said, what's your goal? What's your plan? What do you want to be reading? He's like, well, I don't really like setting that kind of structure. I just like letting it be as it comes. And I was like, what in the world is that about? Like, you never do that with anything else in life. And after a lot of conversation, what we finally reached was he was afraid of failure. He had set that goal so many times, and he had failed to come up short so many times. He was tired of setting goals again because he's like, I'm just going to fail again. Like, what is the point of me setting where I want to be if I keep coming up short? If I keep coming up short, what is the point? Last Sunday when we were watching the NFC Championship game, anyone watch the game? You guys didn't watch the game? God forbid. It's a fantastic game. Okay. It was a wonderful game. But nonetheless, Ted did. Okay. Olivia did. Matt did. All right. You guys can be...
We said NFC.
NFC Championship game.
That's what we were watching.
All right.
NFC is a division. It's AFC and NFC.
We're going to have some basics of football before the Super Bowl next Sunday, all right? We'll talk about that during the week. We'll have like a special roundtable discussion just for that. But let's come back to it. So last week we were watching the NFC Championship game. And Grace comes down and she's like, oh, who's playing? And I told her. And she hadn't seen the score yet. And she's like, who do you want to win? So I told her. And I said, who do you want to win? And she's like trying to like see the TV to see the score. And I'm like, no, hold back. And Joseph's like tackling her to the ground. Like he's like, you have to make a decision. She wanted to hedge her bets. She wanted to hedge her bets. And why? Because she didn't want to root for the team that was losing. Right? Well, we do the same thing, by the way, with setting goals. We're afraid of failure. So we just say, let me see what's... I'm just not going to set goals. What's the point? That way, if I don't set goals, I don't fail. If I don't aim for anything, I can't come up short. I'm in good shape. In Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 5, Nehemiah comes to the king. It says, and says the following: I said to the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, I ask you, send me to Judah, to the city of my father's tombs, that I may rebuild it. Nehemiah knew exactly what his goal was. And he was able to articulate it very clearly to the king. King said, you look upset. What's bothering you? He said, listen, I need to go back. Father's tombs, they're in ruin. City's in ruins. I need to rebuild it. This is exactly what I need to do. Can I go? He knew what the situation was. He knew where he wanted to go. Now, two different types of goals. Let me give them to you. If you're familiar with Deacon Michael Hyatt, he's written a book called Best Year Ever. It's a fantastic book. I would encourage you to check it out. Something that I started last year. I went a little bit more deeper into this year, and it's been fantastic. But one of the things that he distinguishes are the two types of goals that we have, okay? There's two types of goals. The first one is an achievement goal. The second one is a habit goal. What Nehemiah was here trying to do was an achievement goal, right? He said, this is the condition of the temple, and I want to achieve this. This is what I want to do. This is exactly what I want to accomplish, okay? In the church goals, there's a number of achievement goals. One of them, for instance, is build one new same-gender friendship at church and pray for them. Okay? That is an achievement. That is something that's not a habit thing. That's something that you are going to do, and that hopefully a person will be with you and you'll build that friendship in this coming year. Another achievement goal might be read the Bible in 1 year. Now, you could take the read the Bible in 1 year and make it a habit goal instead. Habit goal would be, I'm going to read 10 minutes a day, or I'm going to read 3 chapters a day, 6 days a week, for the next 180 days. So you can have it as an achievement or as a habit goal. First thing is you figuring out which type of goal it is. The king sees him upset and he asks what he wanted, and he articulated exactly what it was he wanted. Number 3 was, so he knew where he was at, where he wanted to go, and the next thing was the gap. How far do I want to go? This is the delta, not this delta, but this delta. This is the gap. In math, it is the distance between 2 areas that I want to go. In the very next verse, in Nehemiah chapter 2, it says the following. The king said to me, the queen also sitting behind him, how long will your journey be? How long will your journey be? What's the delta? What's the gap? Okay? Clearly, Nehemiah had thought about it because his response afterwards is very clear. How long will your journey be? When will you return? And so he gives him a response, and then he immediately says, so it pleased the king to send me, and I set him a time. Okay? This is how far do I want to go? What am I trying to accomplish? This is where I'm at. This is where I want to go. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. And articulating it is really helpful. If you're currently reading 5 minutes a day in the Bible and saying, I want to read 10 minutes a day, and then the gap is you're saying, I'm looking to increase 5 minutes a day. That's not bad. If right now you're showing up to church at 10 o'clock and you're saying, man, I really want to get to 9 o'clock, you're saying that's only an hour difference. That's doable. That's doable. But we're not yet finished because filling that gap, reaching that gap, crossing that gap, we need a plan to do it. Okay? We need a plan to do it. We said last week that the problem is sometimes we look at that gap, that goal, we try to do it all too quickly. And that's one of the common mistakes that we have when setting any kind of a goal. Okay? So we got to have a plan in place. If we don't put a plan in place, it's simply a dream. Goals, the main idea that I want you to take away from today is that goals without a plan are just dreams. Goals without a plan are just dreams. And in today's discussion section, what I'm going to have you all do is come up with 3 dreams that you have for the church, and then you're going to convert those into goals with actionable plans. Okay? We're just going to do small group exercise today. Okay? But goals without a plan, it's just a dream. And dreams are nice. Don't get me wrong. I have lots of dreams. But until I've articulated them with goals and plans, it's just a dream. All right? So how do I get there? That's the last part. That's the plan part. How do I cross from current state to desired state? How do I fill that gap? How do I cross the gap? How do I cross over this big chasm that seems huge? How do I reach the goals that I want to reach? And that's where the plan comes in. Planning is the process of clarifying or discerning the ultimate God-given directions and identifying the course of action to get there. Okay? Planning is a process of clarifying or discerning ultimate God-given directions and identifying a course of action to get there. A number of years ago, when I was in Queens, maybe I had a midlife crisis a little bit early, but I called up Maura one day. She was at work, and I said, I've got this dream. I've got something I want to do. And she's like, uh-oh. She could hear it in my voice, and she said, what is it? I said, I'm going to fly down. And I had already planned it out. I'd already mapped the whole thing out. I'd done all the research and everything. I knew exactly how much it was going to cost. I knew where I was going to get the things I needed to get. I knew how much, everything about it. I knew how many days it was going to take. I knew how I was going to get away for that period of time. I said, I want to fly down to Panama Canal, buy a motorcycle, and drive back up to New York. And I was like, hello? She goes, I'm here. And it was complete silence. She was like, okay, I've got to get back to work now. And she hung up. By the grace of God, and I thank God this happened, shortly afterwards, we moved here to St. Neannis, and I can't get a priest to cover me for 3 weeks or 3 to 4 weeks, which is how long it's going to take. Once I do, maybe I'll do it. I don't know. Maybe I'll become a lunatic, and I don't know. Who knows? Okay. But I knew exactly what I needed to do. I knew the plan. I knew what it was going to require, what it was going to cost. I even, thankfully, got my wife to buy in. She's a good woman, or maybe she's just given up hope on me. Who knows? Okay. But I knew exactly how I was going to execute that goal of mine. Okay. One of the important tools that we need to know that's at our disposal is the type of goal that we set. What is the goal? How do we, what is the actual goal itself? One of the goals a lot of people have set for themselves is, I want to start reading the Bible. I don't think this is a goal, by the way. This is a dream. This is a wish. Say I want to start reading the Bible, that's a dream. Most of you are familiar with SMART goals. Okay? So we're going to do a quick review of SMART goals, and then I'm going to introduce you to SMARTer goals, which is a evolution of SMART goals. And we'll look at what this actually looks like for you to have SMARTer goals in wanting to start reading the Bible. Sound good? All right. So, SMARTer goal, a smarter way of articulating I want to start reading the Bible is as follows. You say, by December 15th of 2018, I will have read the Bible through by reading 4 chapters per day at 9 p.m. in my bedroom starting on February 1st, 2018. That is a SMART goal. That is you being specific exactly what it is that you're going to do. It's measurable, it's achievable, it's realistic, and it's timely. Okay? And there are some variations of it, but it is you laying out exactly what it is the goal is so that you can look back and say, am I doing exactly what I have set out to do? Is it specific? What exactly will I do? I'm going to read 4 chapters a day. Okay? Or how many ever chapters a day? I'm going to read X number of chapters each and every day. I need to know exactly what it is I'm trying to accomplish. If you say, I want to run a race, my goal is to run a race this year. Which kind of race are you wanting to run? Okay? 2 different kinds of races. There's a sumo race over here. Maybe you want to run a sumo race. If you do, you're probably going to have to put on about 100, 150 pounds. Okay? If you want to run a marathon, you're going to have to go in the other direction. You're going to have to train differently. Okay? So specificity is key in my goal setting. What exactly is it I'm trying to do? Number 2 is it measurable? How much? How much am I trying to do? I'm trying to read X number. I'm trying to put away $100 a month for the next 12 months so that I can take that money and take a family vacation on the shore, for instance. Okay? Specificity and measurability are the first 2 aspects of setting SMART goals. How much, how many, how will I know I have succeeded? What do I need to do in order to say, today I have succeeded? I have reached my goal at this point. I can measure that I have done what I've said I'm going to do. Number 3 is it achievable? How can I accomplish the goal? Is it achievable? Is it something that I can do? One of the things that makes sometimes goal setting unachievable is we set too many goals. We set too many goals. A lot of people have different opinions on this. Some people say 5 goals, some people say 40 goals. Most numbers I've read out there is anywhere between 10 to 15 goals. And closer to the bottom end. Okay? At any given time. To manage them. That makes it a little bit easier to achieve. When I started off, a few years ago, I had like 25 or 30 goals, and I found myself year after year only reaching about 1/3 to 1/2 of the goals that I had been setting out. Is it realistic or relevant? Do I have the resources needed in order to do what it is that I want to do? Is it worthwhile? Is today the right time? Does it fit in my season of life? Does it fit in my season? Like for right now, I can tell you it's not realistic or relevant for me to fly down to Panama Canal. I know that now. You guys don't have to worry. Once we get another priest, I'm not going to disappear for a few weeks and do that. It's not a realistic and relevant thing at this point, at this stage of my life. Okay? And number 5, importantly, is it timely? When and what can I do each day, each week, each month in order to reach my goals? The difference between a goal and a dream, someone once said, is a deadline. It's a deadline. I'm going to do this by this day. A difference between a goal and a dream is a deadline. Okay? Part of your SMART goals, part of your plan is to give yourself a deadline and to hold yourself accountable to that. In so doing, usually say, this is where I want to reach. So let's use a weight goal, for instance. I want to lose 20 pounds in the next 6 months, which means I need to lose 3 pounds per month. That's achievable. Okay, I can do that. Okay? 3.3 pounds to be exact. Okay? That's doable. I want to read the Bible in 30 days. Well, if I do the Bible in 30 days, that's about, 40 chapters a day. That's probably not achievable. Okay? So I reboot, reset, and say, what can I do? What's achievable? And then I work backwards from there. Deacon Michael Hyatt, he had some variation here, okay? He had, a number of them were the same, but a few of them were different. And you're going to find variances in all of them. But the 3 that he changed up were from achievable to actionable, realistic to risky, and the last one was exciting. And the exciting one we're going to talk about next week, because that's a big part of what do we do when we hit obstacles. Okay? When we hit lack of motivation, how do we keep going? And that excitement part, I think, is an important part. But we'll discuss that further next week. But as far as it being actionable, what exactly is the action I will need to do to reach what it is that I want to reach or where I want to be? Okay? This is you saying, I'm going to run for 2 hours, run for 30 minutes at 5 or 6 a.m. Okay? That's actionable. It's a verb. There's going to be a verb included in this part of the goal setting. Okay? And then he also includes the word risky instead of relevant or realistic. As a Christian, he believes that God's grace is needed to reach any kind of goal. And sometimes we aim super low because we're hedging our bets. And so he says, have a little bit of risk. Stretch yourself a bit. Okay? I don't think 10 minutes is risky, by the way. 10 minutes of Bible a day, that's not risky. I've given you guys a very realistic goal for that. Risky is you saying, you know what? I don't want 10 minutes. I'm going to do 15 minutes. Or 10 minutes for you might be, you know what? I have 3 kids. I commute 2 hours each day. I hardly spend any time. Like I'm sleeping 4 hours a night. I think 10 minutes for me might actually be risky. That's good for me. I can start there. Okay? The truth is nobody plans to fail. As I always say, we simply fail to plan. And so when we talk about our goals and our plans, it is critical as part of our goal setting that we build in and say, this is exactly what I'm going to do to reach where it is that I want to reach. Proverbs 16, verse 3 and 9 says, commit your works to the Lord and your thoughts will be established. A man's heart plans his ways, but the Lord directs his paths. In our house about 2 years ago, we realized every morning our house was chaos. When you have young kids, at the time our little one was 2, our big ones were 6, and our house was chaos. And Maura would get out the door, and I was responsible to get the twins about the rest of their day. Okay? And we didn't know what to do. And absence of a plan, there was a lot of shouting, and have you brushed your teeth and put on your socks, and you forgot, did you change your underwear, and have you eaten, and oh, your breath stinks, go brush your teeth, you didn't brush your teeth, oh, is your bed made? I mean, there was a lot of that going back and forth and yelling and shouting and whatnot. A couple years ago, we said, What's our goal in the morning? Our goal is to get our kids out of the house peacefully, good start of the day, and we have certain things that they got to get done before we get out the door. And so we put together a morning routine. And that morning routine includes all the average things, normal things that we want our kids to do. We want our kids first thing in the morning, brush their teeth, wash their face, pray, eat, whatever it is that we want our kids to do. So now in the morning we say, go look at, what do I do next? Go look at your morning routine. Go look at your morning routine. And it's gotten to a point where because they've been doing it for so long, there's no conversation anymore. Sometimes, like, they'll forget socks, for instance. Like, you know, it happens, right? But putting a goal without a plan, it's just a dream. So, if we take this as a microcosm and apply this to our own lives, or parents, with our kids, whether it's with this or with homework and studies and their own Bible reading and praying, since as parents we're discipling our kids, we're responsible to put plans in place for them. Yes? If I want my kids to eat a certain amount of food or certain types of food, I've got to have a plan. I've got to go shopping to get the types of foods that I want my kids to eat. Otherwise, my kids could eat Doritos with their dad 24/7. I mean, that's my favorite food, is nacho cheese Doritos. My kids, we could sit around eating that all day long. If there was no plan in place to get healthy foods into the house, that's what would happen. And then the last part of this, and this seems like such a no-brainer, but put it on your schedule. Figure out what you want to do, what your specific goals are, your smarter goals are, and put it on your schedule. If it's not on your schedule, it won't happen. It won't happen. But what I want to encourage you, and listen, a number of years ago, I moved everything over to digital. I don't use hardly anything. I don't write. I have paper, I think somewhere in my office, but everything for me is digital now. But you have to figure out the system that works for you. For some of you, you're digital people. For some of you, you're paper, pen, people, or analog. You have to figure out the system that works for you. But write it down. Put it in your planner. I have every single day, without fail, four habits that are in my daily digital planner. And every day I get an alert to remind me to do them. Okay? Prayer, Bible reading, exercise, journaling, and a fifth thing is studying for my doctorate. Okay? It's in my daily schedule, every single day. It's not a whole lot of time each day for each one of those, but a little each day is a whole lot better than a lot once every blue moon. Yeah? We're not trying to cram our lives, and the only reason we tend to cram is because we have no plan. Yep. So let me conclude with that. Having goals that help us walk in the footsteps is important to us. So I want to encourage you today, as you take some of these goals home that we've been talking about, and you start thinking about specific, like, smart goals that you want to reach in 2018. We're still in January, folks, okay? We're 1 month down. Now's as good a time to start as ever. I want to encourage you to sit and make them smart goals and put a plan in place. Schedule it out and build your life. Plan out your life. And next week what we'll do is we'll conclude this actually in 2 weeks we'll conclude this mini-series, and we'll talk about what happens when we hit the wall. What happens when we start off really well and then we get to a point where, like, you know, I just can't. Or I've missed too many days. Or I've skipped 3 days here. What do we do at that point? All right?